Ladies and gentlemen, listeners, watchers, my name is Brandon Lewis. I am your executive producer, host, and founder of Brandon's World. Welcome to the second state of the sport, where we will be taking a hard look at what is really going on in various sports over the summer with a subject matter expert. Today, Voltage Live colleague Sean Fitzgerald will be dissecting the current state of Major League Baseball. For the majority of the 2010s, MLB was seen as the far distant third professional sport in terms of popularity compared to the NFL and the NBA. But radical changes beginning in the 2023 season has brought fans, especially those in the coveted 18 to 34 demographic, back to the sport. Bigger bases, the banning of the shift, and the implementation of a pitch clock has dramatically sped up the game. The average MLB time a game in 2024 was 2 hours and 36 minutes, compared to 3 hours and 8 minutes in 2022. Last offseason, Shohei Ohtani, the game's best player, left the Los Angeles Angels in free agency for the Los Angeles Dodgers across town. Ohtani would help lead the Dodgers to their first World Series win, excluding the shortened 2020 season due to the COVID-19 pandemic, since 1981, and a matchup against Aaron Judge and the New York Yankees. From Ohtani to Judge to Mookie Betts to Tarek Skubal to Bobby Witt Jr. to Jose Ramirez, MLB is loaded with young stars who are moving the game forward. The game has turned more analytical, with stats like WAR, launch angle, and OPS being the standard bearer for how modern MLB fans analyze performances. MLB is also in potentially the last year of its media rights contract with ESPN. ESPN opted out of the deal that was supposed to expire at the end of the 2028 season in March of this year. The two sides are negotiating a potential extension to keep the sport on ESPN, a home it has had since 1990. And now, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you the man who is going to help the audience of Brandon's World understand the state of MLB. He is the host of the Fits on Sports podcast. He is an MLB expert and has covered Cleveland Guardians games for various media companies. He is Sean Fitzgerald.
Hey, Brandon, it's good to be back on. And I know for folks who are listening in, I want to just let you know I'm giving my socials right off the top so that way we're not just doing it at the end. We're going to cover a lot, and I want to make sure you all are as informed as you can possibly be. Twitter/X, Fits on Sports BSR, same applies to Instagram, plus the .bsky.social on Blue Sky. I'll probably start using that a little bit more as we get closer to next year, but for the most part, a lot of the activity is still on Twitter right now. But Brandon, I'm super excited that you brought me on for this. What we want to jump into first?
Fitz, we're going to start today with the state of the American League East. We're going to go in the order of what you usually go in your Where Things Stand MLB series, which will be coming out at the end of the 2025 MLB season on Voltage Live as well. And surprisingly, as of right now, in first place in the AL East is the Toronto Blue Jays. And the question is, they've been a good franchise for years. They've had obviously various playoff appearances and all that, but they have never felt, at least in our lifetime, a legitimate World Series contender. Do they feel like that this year to you?
It's tough to say. I definitely believe that just with how they've played of late, they have a shot. I think the American League's a little bit more open. I still think Detroit's probably got the best shot of anybody to go to the World Series. I think what was it? This is the longest stretch in the wild card era where there hasn't been a Central Division rep from either the AL or the NL. But Toronto's making a compelling case, especially, as we get closer to the deadline. The problem is they don't have as much depth, especially if they were to lose, like, let's say, a Vladimir Guerrero Jr. to injury or something like that. But they have a chance to compete. And the reason why I say that is the Yankees, I've said this somewhat more like jokey, especially as I have a couple of buddies of mine who I'm close with who are Yankees fans. But the Yankees have just, in my mind, two really good starters: Max Fried, who they signed in free agency, and Carlos Rodon. I mean, also free agency, but not this just past winter. And beyond that, you don't have Garrett Cole this year. Louis Skill's been on the IL, and I'm just trying to remember who else they've had to throw in there. I mean, they had to use Carlos Carrasco for some point this year, and the fact that you lose Juan Soto, that's where things are for me. The Yankees don't really have as good of a shot this year. That's not to say it's non-zero, but when you look at Toronto, they've got a little bit more in that rotation right now. They've got, I'd say maybe an equal lineup, give or take. I'd say that some of the runs scored for the Yankees is a little inflated by those first few games with the torpedo bats. But as a whole, Toronto's rotation gives me more confidence than the Yankees. Because if you had retained Juan Soto, let's say, I'd feel a heck of a lot more comfortable saying that the Yankees could overcome, any potential rotation question marks, which they have a lot of behind, just their top two. That's how I view it. So I think if you're looking for, this year, I think Toronto definitely has a case. It's just a matter of, what's going to happen in the future because Bo Bichette is hitting free agency, and I'm doubtful that he's going to resign, more so just off of a gut hunch. But they've managed to find a way to re-up Guerrero Jr. So who knows what'll happen when it comes to winter this year. There's going to be a lot of intrigue in that AL East, and especially there are some teams that are coming on hot.
Well, one of those teams, let's talk about them. This team, they won the World Series in 2004. They won the World Series in 2007. They won the World Series in 2013. And they won the World Series in 2018. However, since then, it has sort of felt like the Red Sox are going in a weird direction. Obviously, they just traded Rafael Devers a few weeks ago to the San Francisco Giants. I know many in the Boston entitled media are angry at that decision. Boston is such a big market. It feels like they should compete relatively every single year. But to me, as a casual, and I'm sure to many casual baseball fans out there, it feels like that Yankees Red Sox sort of rivalry is distancing itself now because Boston has not been very competitive in many years now.
Yeah, I say this like the curse of Mookie because Mookie's won two titles out in LA. Shane Bloom was given a little bit of a raw deal when they brought him in from Tampa Bay to shed a little bit of payroll. They also flipped David Price that way. And there isn't a player left on that Red Sox roster that came in from that trade that's producing at all for them right now. The Red Sox have been weird, at least how that's the best word I have since 2018 World Series, 2019. They've only made the playoffs once, and that includes the COVID era where they didn't make it, that COVID year. They made it once in 2021, I believe it was, and then they haven't made it since. They should be able to, play better, but this is a chance, where we're going to see a multi-year window open up for them potentially, right, almost in the here and now. You've got Ramon Anthony, one of the top prospects, and almost, more of a guarantee kind of guy in the views of some evaluators, compared to, let's say, who was I thinking of earlier, like a Nick Kurtz per se. Like even though Kurtz is mashing the ball, obviously, like Ramon Anthony's got like a whole different like kind of level of aura to him. Marcelo Mayer. Who else am I just trying to think about off the top of my head? Like Sedona, Rafaela. Like just these guys have a lot of young, talented potential guys on this roster for Boston and in their minor league system still. So it's almost like now that I kind of look back, it's almost like they needed to go through a reboot and maybe they had enough of a foresight to realize that. And if they did, I'll tip my cap to them. I'm not wearing a cap right now, but I have a few right over here. But Boston's, a team I think can spend. I'm wondering it's more of, you know, go with the John Hart method of old, try to re-up your young stars, whether it be after this season, next season. You got some pitching too with Brian Balo and a few others. And then, you can supplement that core with guys from the free agent market. I've been pretty upset, especially more so from the mindset, as you mentioned, Devers earlier. Craig Breslow, guy in charge of, a lot of the baseball ops stuff. Uh, he was a former major league pitcher for a good number of years, and I just feel like the way that things were handled with Devers, that definitely was weird. It just felt like he, in my opinion, my perspective, kind of went on a power trip of sorts. Because you should know, as a position player, especially and or as a pitcher, you do not mess with one's routine. And the fact that it all spill out on the public, I mean, we'll see if time proves him right. But right now, enjoy the ride while it lasts. We'll see where it goes. There's ebbs and flows to a season, and they won 8 straight. We'll see if that sticks, but they've got a lot of competition around them in that AL East.
So Tampa Bay has been a franchise in a little bit of disarray this season. Obviously, they're playing at a spring training site because of the hurricane that went through in their dome. We know obviously the support down there in Tampa Bay from the fan base is not great, but how do they keep competing? What is the plan? Are they I don't know this, with their stadium situation, and is there a chance that in the next decade, that they even potentially are in Tampa?
So I'll start with the stadium situation. It's been very weird, especially given that where they've been located is really out of the way of where you could get a lot of your traffic coming from. It's not as easily accessible to say, for lack of better terms. There has been a push in the last couple of months for the owner, Stuart Sternberg, to potentially sell the team and have whoever would take over potentially keep them in Tampa Bay, from what I best understand. Uh, Sternberg has let his guys run the team. I mean, they are always running on the margins. They've gone for a couple of big splashes in recent free agent cycles, more so going for a couple of big stars. I'm trying to remember which ones for certain off the top of my head. On like short term high AAV or average annual value, which is how you calculate your luxury tax. And also what a lot of the players seem to, beyond, because baseball contracts are almost always fully guaranteed, uh, set a new benchmarker there. Uh, they're a smart organization and they've got guys who produce. They're because unless you have a guy that you're able to lock up long term, and not Wander Franco being a big time exception, notwithstanding, uh, they are willing to flip guys a little bit earlier as their price goes up, and they've done a great job at player development and also identifying players outside of other organizations who, I mean, Willie Adames, he's now the starting shortstop for the San Francisco Giants. He was with the Brewers for a couple of years. When they flipped for David Price to Detroit for Adames, and I think there was one other player at least in that package. Not really that many people would have batted an eye, but nowadays he's a household name, at least for those who are a little bit more, maybe not as casual is the best way I can put it, but definitely for those who've been paying a lot of attention, especially if you're a National League fan. I mean, they know how to identify guys. I mean, Cleveland's made their own kind of mistake, I guess you could term it, flipping star third baseman Junior Caminero to them for Tobias Myers a few years ago. And then I'd say the one time that they've maybe just kind of messed up a little bit for Tampa Bay in recent memory was the Manzardo for Savale swap between them and Cleveland. But Tampa Bay's always done a really good job of A, developing their talent, B, knowing when to capitalize, and C, just going even through the depths of another team's farm system in order to extract what is the next, not generation, but the next part of their next core roster.
So what's the deal with Franco? Because I know that, he just got
He
sentenced to
is
like 2 years in
he
prison,
is
but
never playing a baseball game again. I'll be
so
shocked.
that's what I
I'll
was
be
gonna ask.
shocked.
He's not still on like the Rays payroll, right?
That's a question I need to confirm. I don't think so at this point. However, if he is, which is potentially the case, there would be probably a clause in that contract, given what has happened, where they would be able to get out of it with an escape hatch of sorts. But there's some ambiguity there that I don't know. I am not a lawyer, so
I
I don't
gotcha.
want to state that as if it were fact.
Well, you know this. My pick to represent the American League in the 2024 World Series. The start of that season was the Baltimore Orioles.
You and me
And
both, yeah.
currently, they are in last place in the AL East. What the hell happened?
That's what I was wondering. At the start of the year, I was thinking, like, what? Like, what happened to this team? Apparently, we all kind of missed the warning signs at the end of last year. But the one thing, even under new ownership, so I'm not going to give them Dave Rubenstein too much crap on this, is even under late owner Pete Angelos, the problem with the Orioles was for the longest time they did not really go into Latin America, didn't really have much of a presence, there versus all the other Major League Baseball teams. Uh, and that was a big problem. And your other big problem, and it still is one, is a lack of an ability to develop pitching internally. They've figured out the hitting aspect. I mean, Jackson Holliday, Gunnar Henderson, Jordan Westberg, a bunch of other players we could name. Uh, it's just bizarre. Even one of their best internally developed guys, Grayson Rodriguez, has been on the injured list for the entire season. And they've tried to patchwork that rotation together. I think part of it is also, as funny as it is to say, down to hubris, because I was seeing, what was it, Jason Lockenfora, if I've got the right name I'm thinking of. I know it was a Jason, uh, tweeting a lot about Mike Elias and former manager Brandon Hyde. And honestly, they may need to just clean house in the front office too and bring some fresh blood in. Elias helped get them back, but both guys, Hyde's gone. I think Elias needs to go next. I mean, they figured out one part of the things, but there are now a whole host of other problems, and not to mention Adley Rushman after this year will be 2 years away from free agency, and he got that super big signing bonus as the 2019 number one overall pick in the amateur draft. And then Gunnar Henderson is going to be hitting the first of his 3 arbitration years. So the clock is ticking. And I'd say between those two, and I wrote an article up on Voltage at the beginning of the year, Brandon. The one who's probably going to be more indispensable is Rushman, because guys like him who are all-star catchers who hit and field and do everything that he does do not grow on trees. They are very rare.
Let's move to the AL Central, the division who last year shocked the MLB world by having four legitimate playoff teams battling it out by the end of last season. This
I
year,
wouldn't count the Twins along that line. They were terrible last year.
fair enough. This year, it has the team with the best record in Major League Baseball currently by 3 games. That is the Detroit Tigers, who I recall when I brought you on at the beginning of the MLB season, right around March, we previewed a little bit of the season. You said you were a little skeptical about Detroit. I pushed back to you a little bit on that. I thought they were easily the number one contender to Cleveland in the division. And it turns out that, well, when you bring back Jack Flaherty and when you have Terrence Scoobel and
Mm-hmm.
you have, the young talent they have to go along with a World Series winning manager, that this Tigers team is really good.
Yeah,
But
and they've proven that. I mean, there you are right. I was a little skeptical given how they just seem to have those mental errors, and you saw that in their first series of the year, that 4 game set in Detroit. I was like, why are they still like? It seems like Cleveland's in their head, but it doesn't seem like that is the case anymore. I mean, Javier Baez, number one, the fact he's an all-star in the outfield, that's just it kind of blows my mind. But they fixed up his swing, and that's a big part of being able to unlock part of that lineup. They have had a little bit of a dip in production from Spencer Torkelson, but Riley Green is the real deal. They've got a ton of prospect depth. Even with Flaherty struggling a little bit, they've been able to win games and just win, especially with Tree Skubal on the mound. It's like he's not an auto win. Last night, I think he just lost the first
last
time.
night Seattle bombed him, I believe.
Yeah, but you see what happens when you have a really good rotation and hitters who know how to A, do the small things, and B, are willing to sacrifice. And finally, with in terms of Baez, the fact that they've been able to mechanically get him back into shape, so to speak. Like that is a big part of, just allowing him to be able to be an everyday player again versus a sunk cost on the bench. So there was some of that skepticism, but they have addressed that and then some.
Fitz, you're based in Cleveland, Ohio. Brandon's World headquarters is based in Cleveland, Ohio. We lived through the 10-game losing streak where this team couldn't hit a bag of beans. And then the other night, they get to Josh Hader and, they win five in a row. And then whatever the hell that swinging bunt basically
Yeah, four in a
sacrificed
row.
to,
Yeah.
to end that game last night against Chicago at the time of this recording. Are we saying there's a chance, or are we
There
just
is
going to
a chance. I'm
2026?
just skeptical. There are things, Brandon, that I'll just state for the audience that I cannot say, to say the least. But there's been some stuff in the organization that's baffled a number of folks. Let's just put it that way. And I am definitely hopeful that if they can win these next two against Chicago, I'm not saying playoffs right now, okay? Because it's going to be, I don't remember the last time a team had a 10-game losing streak prior to the All-Star break. And I tried to look it up and Google was wrong. So I made sure I double checked my facts there. I think they were trying to say, like, what was it, 2021 or 2012 Atlanta. But
I don't know why I thought Detroit came close last year. Weren't they on like an 8 or 9 game
I
losing
think they
streak
were at
before they
one
got
point
hot?
that I couldn't remember, but like 10 games is a lot to come back from. Like you're at, as you said, as of this recording, currently 44 and 49. You lost a lot of your buffer room to have much to lose a lot of margin for error. If you're going to
And
sneak in the
correct
playoffs,
me
you
if
need to have,
well,
you can only
correct me
lose
if
21
I'm wrong,
games.
right? If you lose 10 in a row and you win 10 in a row, it's not the same. It's like, oh, we won 10, we lost 10. Am
Yeah,
I right on that?
especially with Detroit sweeping you, you had a 1 game advantage on them. And it's like for a season series wise, if it were to ever come down to tiebreakers after the first series, but you getting swept at home by them, they now have a 4-3 season series advantage. So that's a big, big, big problem in my just how I'm seeing things. And that's going to put them behind the eight ball. They have to play a lot of catch up. And if they're going to do that, there's going to need to be some changes. You're going to need to bring up Chase DeLauder at some point. You're going to need to jettison Jonathan Rodriguez. He needs to go. I'm just stating this as someone who has been an outfielder and someone who's more easily able to kind of give a quick scouting breakdown on outfielders. He's a quadruple A guy. Jonathan Rodriguez is not a true MLB starter in the slightest. And there are some problems. I think we're starting to see at least the pitching come around outside of the one thing I don't even want to touch with Luis Ortiz. But you're seeing a team that I'm hopeful will have a better second half. It may be better if they, who knows if they luck out and land the number one pick again if they were to miss the playoffs. I would love to see if that were to happen. It'd be so funny. But that's, to be completely frank, I'm not sure where this season's going to go given like I thought they were dead men walking completely after losing the 10th in a row, but they still could at least play spoiler in the second half, but I'd say they can only afford to lose 21 total games after the All-Star break, if assuming they win these next two against Chicago, in order to make the playoffs. And as for last night's game, they should have suspended it in the top of the nine. I don't care what people want to say. Like that was dangerous health wise. And you saw that with just the lack of grip on the baseball when it was being thrown by Vassell or by any of Cleveland's relievers like Sewell, etc. Like that was dangerous. And I would have rather suspended that, resumed it this afternoon, and then played the regular game.
All right. What do we make of Kansas City and Minnesota? Because I don't know.
Minnesota's the interesting one. Kansas City feels like they pushed their chips in a little too early. They've got a good hitter, a generational type of hitter with Bobby Witt Jr. They've got some good pieces. The problem is they cashed a few of their chips in last deadline, and they were the team. I'm like, it doesn't make sense to me that everyone's just on the hype train for them in spring training. And we're kind of seeing what I thought they'd be, just on the fringes of the playoff race, a team that has playoff capability, but they just don't have it this year. Not like they had it last year. So we'll see with them, but I don't think they're going to be going back to the playoffs. Minnesota, though, that's Byron Buxton is finally having the campaign that everyone has been salivating for from the days he was just a prospect. He has mainly stayed healthy this year. He has stolen bases, hit for power, driven in runs. He is as dynamic a player as any. And if this is the one true campaign we are going to see that from him, if you're a Minnesota fan, soak this up. Don't turn your TV off if he's up at bat. Because I can't guarantee his health. No one has been able to do that. But my goodness, like he is such a fun player to watch.
How long until the Chicago White Sox are legitimate? I'm not even going to say World Series, just legitimate 500 as playoff contenders again.
Um, Playoff contenders, I think you're looking like 27, 28, maybe 29 at the latest.
It's a long
Uh,
way off, man.
yeah, but we're in 2025. I think next year, depending on what happens during the offseason, I think next year could be very interesting. I think they might hover close to 500 if their guys continue to develop like Holston Montgomery. You saw him last night. His speed is no joke. Kyle Teal, he was part of the package that they got for Garrett Crochet. He was supposed to be like, what was it, a core four in Boston. He was a Boston legacy, but they flipped him to Chicago. He is a good young catcher who could potentially, he's got a little bit of speed too on the base paths from what I've seen so far. And then their pitching is actually not half bad. They've got a potential, maybe not a true ace, but potential high ceiling number two in Adrian Hauser, left-hander who they just missed coming into this series. I mean, he's one guy who's kind of caught my eye, and who there's a lot more talent in that pipeline. They to have hit the lows that they hit and to see last night the fight that they had, there's some reason for optimism. I'm not saying again, I don't think they're making the playoffs next year. And it's going to be really hard in 2027 still, even whether it's a new CBA or not. Although I think there's a reason to think that, they will be at least closer to 500 than they were to the worst record in baseball by next year, at the very least.
I got two quick fun questions for you about two guys in their team. Number one is I'm assuming Luis Robert Jr. is the son of former White Sox Luis Robert
That I don't know, actually.
because he wears the same number. They both played for the White Sox.
That's something I have never actually thought about that or ever even looked it up.
Noticed that last night while I was watching the game. My other question for you is Levin Sosa related in any way to Sammy?
That one I'm not certain on either. I do not know. I literally like Sosa. There are a few other Sosas, I believe, in baseball right now. So it's possible, but I'm not going to say that I don't think it is, but well, it's possible. I'll just say that.
All right, let's move to the AL West. Now, the Houston Astros, they've had that stretch from 2017 to 2023 where they made the ALCS every year. They're still a very good team, but they don't feel like those Astros teams that are guaranteed to always make the championship series every single year. Is this sort of who they are going forward, where it's like they're going to win the AL West most years? We'll see how good they do in the playoffs.
I think so. It's what my answer wants to be right now. We'll find out, I think, after the All-Star break because they've lost four in a row. Seattle's got, to be
The
honest,
big dumper.
and we'll get to him in a minute. Uh, Seattle's got a lot of pitching. Some of it's injured right now, admittedly. But
Here's the thing about
Houston's problem is
Seattle, though.
this.
We can
Houston's
sort of
problem is
tie.
this. Let me just finish on
Okay,
Houston.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
They've been willing to let their better players walk or trade a few of them away. They've identified guys like Jordan Alvarez and Jose Altuve as, core members of that team. I think, what is it, Framber Valdez is going to potentially walk this coming winter. They've got to figure things out because they got really lucky when they tanked with how much talent they accumulated, and they had to flip a lot of talent to just stay and keep that window open as long as they did. Am I saying that they're going to go to the bottom? No, but I don't think, as you said, they're going to be, that absolute dynamo, almost, dynamic juggernaut. That's the best way I can phrase it.
I wanted to tell you Houston and Seattle went together because you mentioned Seattle's got a good team this year. We know what the big dumper is doing, but they always, to me, and maybe the more casual baseball fans out there would agree with me, like Seattle always comes out of the gate April hot. They have a very good first half, and then post All-Star break, they just disappear by the wayside. Why is that?
I don't know. Like, I wouldn't say every year it's been like that, but definitely in recent years, like last 5, 8, give or take, it's been like that. And I don't know what it is. Like, they've made the playoffs now, was it once or twice? But it's really, really tough for me to identify, like, what's the one cause. Like, they've just had a couple of times. I think one was against Texas a few years ago where it was like it came down to a end of season series, and it was like, just a bunch of bad luck. But to be honest, we were touching on Cal Raleigh. I wonder if there could be enough voter fatigue that maybe if he keeps up this pace, he could be your American League MVP over Aaron Judge. I think that's a distinct
Especially as a
possibility.
catcher, I agree with you.
I mean, if I'd say this, if Seattle makes the playoffs in any way, shape, or form, it'll probably, in my mind, go to Cal Raleigh. I think the fact that the Yankees have had to be carried by Judge, I think that only states that he's been really, really good. But you can, it's not like it's basketball, or let's just, for example, LeBron James in his prime could carry a team to the finals. That's not what baseball is. Aaron Judge cannot carry your team to a World Series alone. And with the lack of pitching depth they have outside of Fried and Rodon that you could run out in a playoff rotation, it Houston's got. I'd say Houston would have a better chance than the New York Yankees to get to the ALCS again. That's
Interesting.
what I see. It's based off of this year. But again, like, they've just had a horrible run of luck on the pitching front with those in the Bronx Bombers.
2 years ago, the Commissioner's Trophy resided in Arlington, Texas, with the Texas Rangers. But what are they now? I mean, it sort of feels like they're a 500 team that's a shell of themselves, the
I
World
think they're a team
Series
that's
team.
got a few guys, especially Kumar Rocker, Jack Leader, who will find themselves back in the playoff race, if not this year, over the rest of the decade. They are going to be competitive, even though Marcus Simeon's getting up there in age. I think Corey Seager's still going to be good for a few years. Josh Jung's hit a little bit of a growth stunt. I don't know what it is. He's just been a hit by pitch magnet for around the wrist area last couple of years, but he is still a really good player. They're letting him figure things out down in the minor leagues. They have some talent, man. Like, I don't know what it is. This has been my thought process for a while. It's like the American League's always a little bit more fun to me when Texas is actually good, the Rangers specifically. And I'm wondering, with just Jung, like, how much of it is more mental for him, because he's a really, really good third baseman, a great power bat, but this year he's just been out of it. Like, again, like, it's just been unlucky injuries for the most part, especially to like the hand wrist area where you need a lot of that outside, the lower body to be able to drive power. And I mean, right now the Rangers are likely going to miss the playoffs, is how I view it, but they'll be on the fringes for a good little while. I think the main thing for them is just A, pitching, and B, probably filling in one or two lineup holes that they have, especially if Simeon really does continue to fall off and he doesn't have like one of those revival seasons next year. That contract's going to look a lot worse than Javier Baez's. I'll just put it like that.
This is going to be an unfair question to Angels fans, but quite frankly, I'm going to do it because they deserve it. How do we get Mike Trout out of there?
Well, not to Angels fans. I'd say Art Moreno should have sold the team when he had the chance. He was looking into it. I was celebrating finally, but the guy's he's got an ego. The guy has an ego. And Moreno is the only way that's going to happen is if Moreno is out. I don't know if that's ever going to happen at this point. Art Moreno is what Jimmy Haslam is to those Angels. That is my best equivalent. That is, or heck, not even Haslam. Who's Dan Snyder? That's what
Oh,
he is.
fair
He's
enough.
Dan Snyder.
Okay. Well, that's all. That's all we need to know about the Angels.
Yeah,
Um,
I feel bad for Trout because
yeah.
he had Ohtani for 6, 7 years, and look at this team. Like they have never been able to develop pitching. They've had one of their opening day players was a pitcher they drafted last summer, and he skipped the minor leagues entirely. You know why? Because they can't develop pitching. And that's what's so sad about them is that they've wasted generational talents and yet they make no progress. It's sad.
Speaking of sad, I know your thoughts on the situation, but the A's franchise obviously eventually moving to Vegas. They're currently in
Sorry,
Sacramento.
no bleeps here. Fuck John Fisher.
I mean, the floor is yours.
Fuck John Fisher, man. I mean, I'm still not convinced that he's going to be able to make it work in Las Vegas. For those who don't know, I'm going to jump to Cleveland for a half second. The payroll's actually been really, really, really hampered by the debt service loans that Larry Dolan, the late Larry Dolan, took out to buy the team from Dick Jacobs. If Fisher has to do the same thing at any point in time to make that move to Vegas a reality, it's gonna be a nightmare. I'll just put it like that. It'll
Gonna
be
be
a it's
Rockies bad.
I think it could be that level bad, maybe even worse.
Oh man.
Again,
Um,
they're lucky that they've got a good amount of talent, but when that talent runs out of control, team control that is, I don't want to know.
so that is your look at the American League. Now we transition to the National League, and we're going to start with the New York Mets, who have an owner in Steve Cohen, spent a ton of money on the team. They had a good run in the second half of 2024, but they have struggled in June. To me, like, I know
They're
they
only a
got
half game
all.
back right now of the Philadelphia Phillies. They're in a dogfight.
They are, but I look at the Mets like they're an underachieving team for a very talented team that are never going to really win anything.
I would disagree with that notion. They're 33-14 at home. That is almost like on Guardians level from last year around this time, if you think about it that way. I mean, they are neck and neck with pardon me, but the Phillies. I mean, just I know that they were on a little bit of a slide, but everything like this happens in a baseball season. Philadelphia's, especially them, they've had some couple years now, really, to kind of get their act together after the whole extended rebuild, if you want to call it that, from the post Ryan Howard, Cole Hamels, all those guys era. But the Mets, they've got some talent in the pipeline. They've got guys who they're trying to have figure it out. I mean, Francisco Alvarez, he's a promising young catcher. They've optioned him and letting him figure things back out. They've done that with one or two of their guys, and it's worked out, to a good degree. Between them and Philadelphia, I mean, both are able to be big spenders. The one thing I give Philadelphia an edge in is Dave Dombrowski being a guy who's willing to go almost all in at any cost. Now, does that stay true this year in Philadelphia? I don't know. But I think their rotation's really strong. I think the Mets have a strong rotation. I think the lineup advantage is very close, just barely tilted towards Philly. But when you talk about clutch, there's a lot of players on that Mets roster, 1 through 9, that can be clutch. And I think the Phillies have maybe one or two fewer of those guys. But that's not to throw a diss their way. That is just how close they are right now. But right now, Juan Soto's actually is, again, as much as people are wanting to bag on him, I want people to remember he didn't get off to a great start a few years ago either. Like the standard for him is so high because he's that good that a season that like what he's having right now is considered bad. You would consider that great for just about any other star player across the league. And that just tells you how much of an impact he makes.
So the other three teams in that division, the Braves, the Nationals, and the Marlins, outside of the Braves run in 2021 and the Nationals run in 2019, and the Marlins being the Marlins, I don't know a ton about those franchises. I know my viewers don't, so educate us.
So Miami is a team where it's just like anytime it seems like they have something good, it just gets torn down. And that's what seemed to happen a couple years ago after they made the playoffs as a wild card. Just a bunch of crap went down, and I'm not going to rehash it all. They started selling off some pieces. They've got some good pitching. That's definitely something that they've got. Edward Cabrera is a guy who's come back on. Sandy Alcantara, former Cy Young winner, I feel so bad for him because he's not been the same guy since he's come back. A guy who I'm really, really in love with, Max Meyer, started off the season strong, underwent season-ending hip surgery. Hope he comes back, but they've got some pieces down there in Miami. Right now, it's more about finding out who you're going to have around for the long term versus who's performing better today. Because I'm not completely sold yet on an Otto Lopez, who's a middle infielder, second base, then shortstop type. There are guys like Kyle Stowers, an outfielder, who I'm still kind of like lukewarm on. They've got talent and they've always seemed to have talent, but they just need to get some level of consistency and some level of just people not interfering in ops. For the Braves, it's been a weird 2 years, last year and this year, with just injuries, injuries, and more injuries. It's been a never-ending parade ever since their like offensive just blitzkrieg across the entire Major League Baseball scene 2 years ago in 2023. So you get Ronaldo Acuna Jr. back. Matt Olson is like an Iron Man. Sean Murphy's finally starting to look like himself again. Austin Riley's bounced back. The main thing compared to last year is just their rotation's a mess. Just with you had guys go down early last year, like Strider, and I still think he's trying to find his best stuff again. And you've been without Reynaldo Lopez for majority of the season. I think it was after his first or second start. Among other, I mean, Spencer Schwellenbach is going to be on the IL. I think he was already put on the 60-day IL, and he was a really really big breakout candidate this year. So the Braves are going to be around. They are going to still be contenders. This is just one of those kind of teams where they just have a couple of years where it's like, okay, we're kind of off, but we know we're close. As for the Nationals, wow. Wow, 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 wow. I say this on two fronts. I did not think they would be so far under 500 right now. I had them pegged for a wild card spot. However, here's where the good news is for Nationals fans. And I know Meredith Kane at 923 is going to love hearing this. Almost every piece you got back for Juan Soto in that first blockbuster, so from San Diego to Washington, you have an ace type pitcher in Mackenzie Gore. Strikeout type, still can give up a few hits and runs here or there, but he is electric. You have James Wood, who is your Juan Soto lighter, maybe even approaching Juan Soto territory. He was just brought up last year. I would be dusting out that 440 million 15-year contract for him, and I'm not even joking around right now. He is that good. Like, I would be busting out that contract for James Wood and making sure he's inked it before the winter meetings even start this winter. Like, he is just mind-bogglingly amazing. CJ Abrams, despite the little mishap at the end of last year that got him optioned to the minors for a short spell, he is a really solid all-star shortstop. You've got him. There's Robert Hassel III. They got the chance to draft Dylan Cruz. There's so much talent in that organization. I think really, it's just Kyber Ruiz. They got all the way from LA for Trey Turner and Max Scherzer. Plus, I'm trying to remember the other player that they got, and I know I'm forgetting who it is, and I should be mad at myself for. The weird thing about Washington, they fired both their general manager and their skipper just within the last week or two, and people don't realize that'll have a massive effect on their draft. They won the lottery and they got the number one pick for this coming Sunday, for tomorrow actually. So what they do is going to be very interesting because, like Cleveland last year, they're going to have a pretty large bonus pool just thanks to that. Ethan Holiday, the son of former major leaguer Matt Holiday, brother of Jackson. There's a few other players up there. Kate Anderson, lefty of LSU, a few others who could go as high as number one to the Nationals. They've got a lot of great ball players at the major league level, some of them who are still figuring it out, and a lot of talent that they're going to be able to bring in, not just through this draft, but through a lot of smart trades and through capitalizing on that blockbuster with Soto, especially. They've got a long term core, and a couple pieces are already locked up. Ruiz being one of them. He's been a little bit, down this year compared to where he was a year or two ago. But if you're a Nationals fan, I'd say by no later than 28. Let's just be a little bit more on the conservative side here of things. I would be very, very happy around that year if I were you guys. If everything goes to plan and if some stability comes back, especially on the GM manager front, I think you have a really good chance to be pushing the Mets and the Phillies and the Braves every single year for a half decade.
Let's move to the NL Central. Let's talk about the 2016 World Series champion Chicago Cubs, who do have the third best record in baseball, currently sitting right behind the Tigers and Dodgers, and right there with the Astros and the Blue Jays as well. What do you make of the Cubs this year? I know they have Craig Counsell now as their manager, the former manager of Milwaukee, but to
They
me,
don't
as
miss
a
them in Milwaukee. I mean, Milwaukee won the division last
yeah,
year. That's to say that.
I mean,
As
to
for
me, as a casual, it sort of feels like it came out of nowhere.
well, Council was one of the rare like free agent managers. He wasn't under contract, so it was not like they traded him away. It was more of a shock again the other year, mainly because I thought David Ross was doing a good job, but kind of the same thing happened in a way when they snagged Joe Madden away from Tampa Bay and whatnot. Like they decided to go cutthroat ruthless, and Council's a good manager. He is. And Chicago, I think, realizes this year is a make or break for them. Like this is a 1 year like win all kind of push. They're not going to fall off completely off the map, but been an outfield prospect, and I'm just starting to learn about him. I don't know enough to talk about him too much yet, but I think it's Owen Cassie who's going to be almost assuredly on the move from what I've been reading up on and just trying to get any semblance of who this guy is. Um, so he'll probably be on the move for whatever help they can get. And then in terms of just their outfield, I didn't think Pete Crow Armstrong was going to turn into this power machine so early, but he has been a he has far surpassed my own expectations for him. He is a fun player to watch. He is. They've got they've got pieces. I mean, they do. Kyle Tucker, though, is the main reason why there's going to be more of an urgency to this year. You got him. You flipped Isaac Paredes, who is an all-star now in Houston. Uh, this is a year where you have to push your chips in. If you're going to go for it, you have to. You're only one game up on the Brewers, and man, it's going to be a close race. I'll say
Any
that.
other comment on Milwaukee outside of console?
I mean, there's nothing to really say about Console. I mean, they've continued to develop pitching. Uh, they got what was it, Logan Henderson, I believe it is, in the minors right now. Uh, the Miz, Jacob Mizorowski, who was just named to the All Star team after just 5 career starts. And I'm just going to say this: I think Major League Baseball is going for the not just for necessarily the worthiness, but for the bringing in the younger crowd factor. Because Christopher what is it? Christopher Sanchez of the Phillies deserved to get a bid over him. He did. But I think what Major League Baseball realized is let's capitalize on a guy right now who's got everybody's attention, and let's bring in more people to what we have going on. But that doesn't mean that Miz doesn't deserve an opportunity to shine. In a way, this could be his big debut to the national audience and help bring more people in. But the Brewers have walked a fine line at times, and they still have Christian Yelich. He's kind of bounced back a little bit. They still have guys in that organization that can hit. They can still develop pitching. I think there's still a good chance that they can win the division. They've won 5 in a row, and they're just literally 1 game back of Chicago. It's kind of looking like a mirror of last year, and I think St. Louis will, at best, is a wild card, but I think Cincinnati's got a better chance than St. Louis to finish at least third in the division.
That's the next team I want to talk about. The team that I feel like personally has the best baseball market, and that is St. Louis.
Yeah, I think this is John, their player, president of baseball operations, John Mosek's last year, and then there's going to be a transition. I think they already identified a successor. I'm forgetting who it was, but I don't think he's the kind of guy who's going to go ego and go for all in. They've got, they've always been an organization that's known how to develop pitching. They've got some younger guys like Victor Scott the second or third. I always get mixed up with those numerals at the end, so forgive me if I got any of that wrong. But they've got guys like that. I know Jordan Walker's been kind of like, but they have some guys who, again, like they they have a little bit of hitting that's been able to get them through things. They're an organization that's always seemed to be strong pitching wise. I don't think they're going to make it this year. I think they'll finish the year above 500. It's just I think Mosaic. I think he's going to do this. He's going to try to walk the line, but also he wants to stock up for the guy coming after him. So that way they can have success and there's not as much pressure on them because Cardinals fans are definitely getting angsty at this point. It's not a question of when do they start really, chirping more than they have already. It's uh, how much longer are they going to just remain patient. And I think you're going to see probably by next year a little bit more of a cohesive unit, especially they're still looking to flip Nolan Arenado. And Arenado's got, I believe, a limited or full no trade clause, and that's made things difficult and a little awkward this year. But hey, St. Louis is always going to contend for the most part. There's rarely a year where they're out of it.
How shocked were you that Terry Francona is back in Cincinnati?
Initially, I was very shocked, but I'll just put it like this with some information I was able to gather. I'm not as shocked anymore, to put it one way. Um, there's one thing though that is public knowledge and has been out there, in that Francona's lifeline, his life, just he lives and breathes baseball. To quote something that Terry Pluto has said before, local Cleveland writer and someone who I consider a guy I somewhat emulate some of my writing style off of, and someone who I've been able to meet personally. And Terry, both Tito Francona and Terry Pluto are great. But for Francona, I think you're seeing him just having a lot of fun with this group. And it's quite frankly a short term stopgap. He's going to manage this year, at least next year, and maybe one more year after that. I think that's how long his contract runs. And then there'll be a transition over to somebody else. This is about, for Cincinnati, getting their young talent with a Hall of Fame manager. And even if Tito doesn't win a World Series in Cincinnati, let's say, that isn't their primary purpose. It's about setting the foundation for the next wave that's coming up right now, and that is up right now. And you've got to be able to capitalize on these 2 or 3 years you're going to have with Francona. Now, could he extend his stay there? It's possible. But from what I have been able to gather, I don't think it's going to be a very long-term relationship, not because there's any animosity, but they know what they're getting. And I think Francona knows he's going to only have so much time in terms of how long his health will hold up.
The Pirates have one fiend of a pitcher in Paul Skeens. And That's it.
No, they actually have another one, Jared Jones, who went down with Tommy John surgery. And I feel bad for him because he got overshadowed last year by Skeens. And they've got another young gun in Bubba Chandler in AAA who's really good. The problem with the organization is, A, they are in some financial distress, and that has been reported on. Uh, it's when I read through the report, and I'm trying to remember, I always forget right as soon as we get into a recording, or I get into recording, even for the Fits on Sports podcast, which both of us have our podcast on Voltage Live. Uh, they are actually in some financial trouble a little bit, and the other part of it is the ownership of Bob Nutting, along with just the complacency of leaving Ben Charrington in charge. That organization needs a shakeup. It does. And I'm not saying like Derek Shelton, the manager, was not given the best hand to succeed. Now, there are things he could have done better. Yeah, absolutely. And Skeens has been getting a raw deal. I know everyone's focused on the wins. I'm more focused on the quality starts. The fact that this lineup is maybe just as bad, if not worse, than that Cleveland lineup from 2021 is saying something, even though you have a couple of dynamic guys. But my God, that ownership needs to go. I don't know what it is. They just need to go. Like that organization needs a big shakeup just from the management level up because they've got a lot of great young players. Again, I know I've said that a lot, but especially pitching wise, and they've got one or two hitters in the pipeline potentially like in the next year or two. They need to get their shit together. They are not going to win anything if Nutting is in charge. And you're not going to flip Skeens for just any return. Like, this guy is. If there were a guy that you would really break that franchise contract record for, it'd be him.
All right, we got 25 teams down. We got five to go. We're in the home stretch, and it's time to talk the reigning, defending, undisputed 2024 World Series champion representing the NL West at one of the most historic and I believe the most seated stadium in all of Major League Baseball. Dodger Stadium, the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Yeah, they're going to make the playoffs. It's almost a given, in my opinion. I'll be shocked if they were to slide out of it. Shohei Ohtani has finally gotten back on the mound, and the fact that you can look at him in the light that he's using his opener starts as rehab starts in a way, it's like, whoa, like he is again, like I know people were ticked off the contracts. The Dodgers played within the rules. I think there's going to be a big time loophole closed when the next CBA is negotiated. And to be honest, if whether or not there is or is not a salary cap, I mean, the Dodgers are the scapegoat that MLB is going to use. And I forgot right off the top, this was something I wanted to mention to all the viewers, and it's a good time to mention it now. The MLB, the Major League Baseball, the National Football League, the NBA. Does it sound natural when I put the MLB? So let's just start with this. Major League Baseball is going to make them a scapegoat versus the Major League Baseball. I want people to remember this because it is a pet peeve, and I don't care if anyone says it's their style or not. If you can't make it roll off the tongue, the MLB does not work at all, period. So let's just get that done. I want people to remember this. But when it comes to Major League Baseball with the Dodgers, there have been comments out there, if you read the tea leaves, not just from Manfred, but from other owners and whatnot. The Dodgers are not doing this as a collusion thing. Let me just say that before anyone jumps to that conclusion. They're playing within the rules. I think it's going to end up biting them in the future. Like when all those they've got so many deferrals. I don't remember how many to count outside of Shohei's contract. I mean, I believe Snell has some, and some. There are a bunch of that roster does. But one thing they've done, and they took from the Tampa Bay model when they got Andrew Friedman, who is one of their top executives. They have been able to replicate Tampa Bay success in the big market. that is how they continue to succeed and continue to do what they are doing right now. Yeah, I didn't realize the 7 game losing streak would have people panicking, but hey, there are teams that go on long losing streaks at times during a season. There's a reason there are 162 games. And the one thing for the Dodgers has been their pitching. They need to stay healthy pitching wise. And I think the lineup should get Max Muncy back maybe late August, early September. But man, I got it. I thought he should have gone out last year as a champion, but Clayton Kershaw, the other night, like I was rooting for him to get his 3,000th strikeout, and he did. They kept him in that game on his 100th pitch. He went 6 innings. Normally he would have been taken out, but he was 3 strikeouts away in a home start. Folks, if you did not stay up to watch that in one way or another, and I know not everybody has access to do so, but if you had access and you could have, you missed something amazing. Like that Clayton Kershaw, it felt like years ago, no doubter that he was going to reach that marker, but some of the injuries delayed that coronation. He is one of only 3 out of the 20 that have joined that 3,000K club to do it with a single team. And I believe one of 4 Southpaws. And if I don't have that right, I know that the numbers would be reversed. But that is such a small and exclusive club. It's even smaller than the Perfect Game Club, if I'm not mistaken. Like that is how rarefied Eric Kershaw is in. And if he's not a unanimous selection, I think the Hall of Fame should reveal all the ballots that year if he's not unanimous. I'm not saying that just to be hyperbolic. I'm saying that as in, I want to know, and I want to know why a person who has represented the game, a legacy franchise, a franchise that has had success with him, multiple Cy Youngs, he's won an MVP for crying out loud, why they would not vote for him to be a unanimous selection. And I don't care what the reason is. When you reach that 3,000 strikeout club, and the fact that there's very few guys that have done it. The only other 2 that are active right now and are in that 20 group are Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer. And those guys have been on multiple teams. Kershaw has just been with the one. That tells you a lot. So I know I'm using some of this space to be more of a shout out to Clayton Kershaw, but man, like he is going to be sorely missed. And a lot of our childhoods for those of us around our age, Brandon, are going to go by the wayside as soon as he goes.
So I have pitched to you that I believe the best rivalry in baseball now is not Yankees Red Sox. I believe it is Dodgers Padres.
Yeah, I'd say so. They've been competitive. They've had 1 or 2 playoff series against each other. I think that also includes the expanded format in 2020. I want to say it was the NLDS.
I want to say you're correct on that.
Because I was trying to remember who made it to the NLCS. I think it was Dodgers Braves in the NLCS that year. I could be a little off, but
It's 2020. We don't count it.
Hey, come on. I'm trying to be at least historically accurate here, but the Dodgers and Padres, I mean, they are just 2 fun teams when they go at it. I mean, there's nothing else left to say on that front. And the Padres have been helped by San Diego's lack of a football team now and being the only team in this market.
It's a good point. I didn't think about that.
So, like, and there's also there will come a point where you saw the other offseason, all the, long-term contracts of like 10 years, 12, 11, 13 that are going to come back and bite some teams. And the Padres will be one of them. Right now, they're going to be competing. They've found a way to compete. And I think a big key for them to be able to maybe make a run at the division is going to be getting a guy like Jackson Merrill straightened back out. He had a hot start to the year, got extended, had a concussion, had another injury or 2. They can get him hot and rolling again. Like all bets are off in that lineup. And let's not ignore, and I know we're going to probably jump to the next, San Francisco. Buster Posey, 3-time World Series champion with that franchise, only played for that franchise. The fact that he was able to get a Matt Chapman extension done, and that helps lead to the ouster of their former president of baseball ops, And the way he went about this winter being aggressive and then going and getting Rafael Devers,
Who just got hurt, from what I understand.
I did not know about that, but still, I love what he's done. Maybe it comes back to bite them at some point, but I think Posey's perspective is really, really refreshing for that franchise after they were stuck in neutral for a few years.
So Devers is currently dealing with a disc injury in his lower back.
Woof. Yeah, that's gonna hurt. So I would say he's definitely DHing the rest of the year.
Um, Not only that, but like Arizona's a good team too, right? You know, they made the World Series a couple years ago in that
Yeah,
matchup
they've got
against
a lot of
Texas.
really good players. The problem is when you have an ace like Corbin Burns, who you just signed to a 6-year deal, have Tommy John surgery, it just ruins a whole season, maybe even two. I don't think they're going to sell people off. You're not going to sell off Ketel Marte. He's probably one of the best second basemen in all of baseball and what's felt like a dearth of second baseman type talent. Corbin Carroll's amazing. They've got some really good guys. I think if you're going to try and restock, you're going to have to deal from some of your big league pitching because you're going to probably not have Corbin Burns next year at all, given the timing of when he went down. I also want to mention this for folks who may not realize the day that Corbin Burns started wasn't supposed to be originally that day. It wasn't supposed to be, what was it, Saturday or Sunday? It was supposed to be a day later. I think it was supposed to be on a Monday. And they, for whatever reason, I don't know why, they moved his start sooner. And if they had any inkling, given just there were a couple of maybe potential warning signs, I don't know what they were thinking with that. Like, it was probably going to happen at some point or the other, but that was just baffling to me, given what I saw and what was being reported and what I heard around that time. Again, it's not like that's anything that's off the record info, but it definitely doesn't make sense to, if your guy's got that elbow issue, like, why are you doing that to him? Like, maybe there was a way to avoid it, but again, your UCL, the ligament in here, does not fully mature and develop until you are 26. So guys like him who have been throwing for a long time, and he threw a combo no-no in Cleveland with Josh Hader back in 2021. I saw that. Uh, it's going to happen at some point for a lot of these pitchers, but man, does it really hurt Arizona's ability to compete this year and next year? You don't know what you're going to have him look like when he's probably back on the mound in 2027 in a best case scenario.
And we have saved the worst for last. The Colorado Rockies. I bet on them. I bet against them, I should say, every single night. I've won more, obviously, than I've lost. I've been earned one of it recently. They've got hot. They've won like 4 games in their last 12 games or
They're
whatever
three
it
and
is.
seven in their last 10. I see that.
There you go.
They
Um,
might be worse than the White Sox of last year. They are in a lot of
oh,
aspects,
they're
but
they're gonna be worse, I think, record
yeah,
wise. I
because they
mean,
won four in a row at one point. I think it was a finale versus the Braves, and then three straight in a 4-game series in Washington. But
and
outside of that, I mean, they've got the problem with them is they need to focus on very specific types of pitching because of the altitude at Coors Field.
mm,
That's been the first problem. And the second problem is just they've had some really good hitting prospects in their system, but they've not been able to develop them, which has been more of a shock to me because that's what it felt like they were able to do a lot of, late 2000s, early mid, somewhat late 2010s. And now they're just an organization that, on the level of Pittsburgh level of ownership, being completely hapless, completely out of touch. Like they are, if there was a relegation, like among ownership, Pittsburgh and Colorado would be duking it out for number one and number two. It's that bad. They need to go. The Montfort family needs to just go. Like that. I will guarantee you this. They will not win a World Series as long as the Montforts are the majority owners of that franchise. They will never win a World Series. They need to get the hell out of there because there's no coming back from this one, especially when you have young players like Chase Dollander, among a few others, a shortstop like Ezekiel Tovar, etc. When you have a couple of those young guys and more coming up, and you cannot do better, the fact that you're going to do worse as of right now than last year's White Sox, that is some ineptitude on a level I don't think we have ever seen. I'm being generous here.
All right, Fitz. Well, we are running a little short on time, so I don't want to rush you, but I also don't want this to go on forever. We've been recording at this point for around an hour
Oh,
and
you know, I
15.
could go forever, though.
I know. So we're gonna do a little bit of a rapid fire here, a little bit. We're gonna talk about the MLB media rights deal situation that's coming up, and then I have a couple other questions that I have saved that I did not ask you to prep over because I wanted your reaction to them live on the air. But let's talk about the media rights deal first. So I mentioned in the cold open of today's show that MLB and ESPN, their relationship was seemingly strained. ESPN opted out of the contract in March of this year, but it has been reported now it sounds like the sides are both trying to get together and maybe hash out a deal to keep baseball and Major League Baseball with ESPN. But what do you want to see for baseball? Do you want them to stay at ESPN? NBC and Peacock has been rumored,
Peacock is the
CBS.
least I want. If they want to go to NBC, I mean that would be one thing that would be a little more interesting, given I think you'd maybe get a little bit of a bump in viewership for those who may not be able to subscribe to ESPN even through cable. But I'm not gonna make any heads or tails of all this because ESPN made the smart financial decision because the deal was gonna be an albatross for them. They needed to opt out. And I think Major League Baseball's got to recognize that part of their problem, which you see with the Guardians and a few of the other teams with the collapse of the regional sports network model, they're going to have to face a new reality and they're going to have to figure something out because the media rights of old are not coming back.
Well, they do have some sort of streaming, right? They have the Apple TV and they have the Roku, which really does
Yeah,
feel
the
like
Roku
bottom
one
of the
is definitely
barrel.
not that. It's not that bad with Roku. There was a free stream online for the Cleveland game that they had the other weekend on that Sunday, was it?
Against
Against
St.
the Cardinals.
Louis, which I was there and miserable.
Yeah. But as a whole, I mean, I'm not a big fan of the Apple TV thing because I know that's where you're going to see probably NFL probably go next at some point if they haven't already. But
At some point, they will. The NFL is going to touch every single media person, right? They can.
let's just say this, like, you need to make an in-market option available if you're going to put them on Apple TV Plus. You cannot keep doing this, especially like forcing people to buy that. I wouldn't. I don't. The only way I would take that is if someone gifted it to me for free and told me, I will give you this in perpetuity for no cost, and you will never have to pay a dime no matter what. That's the only way I would get that with Apple TV.
So, well, let me ask you this. Obviously, at the time of this recording, we're right near the All-Star break and game. The game is going to take place on Tuesday when this comes out. Would you make any changes to the MLB All-Star Week, Home Run Derby game itself, or
The
do you
home run
like the
derby has
state of it?
been great the last few years. I think Cleveland, when they hosted, had one of the best fields. I know this year's field has been changed up a little bit. I'm a little sad that we're not going to actually get Pete Alonso. Matt Olson is in for Acuna Jr., but hey, Olson's still a really good home run hitter. Uh, I think this year's Derby field is going to be really, really freaking exciting. So, like, I
You
think
got
the
a
Derby is
prediction?
just fine.
This will
I
come
think
out
the
the day
Derby is
after the
just fine.
Derby, but do you got a prediction?
Oh, dude, I don't know. Like, it could go any number of ways. It could. I don't know if it'll go to Olsen. Rooker, it's like I want him to win because it's like he's the guy I like. I feel like is relatable to a lot of fans in some way. Just a guy who scrapped and clawed his way up to just the top. Cal Raleigh is obviously going to be the favorite. The question is, how's his swing going to play? Like, does he try to go a little too fast? How's his tempo going to be? And I'm trying to make sure I pull up the rest of the list just because I know there's one or two others. I'm like, holy crap, they got these guys this year, like in the best way possible. Like Byron Buxton is going to be interesting.
That's
Uh,
interesting.
Junior Caminero, I mean, O'Neill Cruz, don't count him out. If he can get hot, Jazz Chisholm is like the Alec Baum of this field from last year, which I was kind of shocked, but he, again, I don't know where he's going to end up. He could win a round. I don't see Chisholm being your champion. James Wood is going to be an exciting watch, but I have a feeling that he's either going to duck out in the first round, like just by a hair, or he's going to make it very close in a semifinal. Like this field is like I don't know who I could pick right now. I don't. There are so many players in this field that could win it. The only one I see a lesser chance of would be Chisholm, but he still has a shot. No one in this field is out of it.
I got one last question for you. And this is a unique one because I did not realize this. I was actually laying in bed last night thinking about it. I had to do some research on it, and I am proven correct on that. Do you realize this year? I just looked it up right before we started recording to make sure I was right on it. We have not seen a no hitter.
Yeah, I
And
realized that about a couple days ago, actually.
and it would be, I actually looked it up while you were talking about some of the pitchers here on this segment today. Do you realize if we do not get a no hitter this year in Major League Baseball, it would be the first year since, do you want to take a guess real quick?
Let me guess, 1800s.
No, it did happen in the 1900s.
Oh wow, shoot, what? Wouldn't be the year. Shoot,
The,
shoot, shoot, shoot. What was it like? Front half of the 20th century or the back half?
it was the back half.
So it had to be what 80s? I have to guess somewhere in the 80s or 90s.
You're close. So I'll split the difference with you. 1989.
Right at the very end of the 80s. That's
Yeah.
the last year of a decade. Decade runs from 0 to 9.
So my question to you is there a reason for it?
I think people have touched on it a little bit, but it's not being brought up as big of a point. I think the baseballs are juiced this year, to be completely frank. I think they are juiced up. I'm not saying that as a bad thing. We've seen a lot of variation from year to year with baseballs. There was the juiced year, there was the not so juiced year. I mean, I don't know what it is where there's so much inconsistency with making the baseballs, but guys are able to just there have been more games I feel like I've seen like multiple teams scoring like 5, 6 plus runs or even double digit runs
Yeah.
than I can remember usually, even compared to like that one super juiced up year like before COVID. I'll be shocked if we don't get one. It doesn't have to be a perfect game, but I would be shocked if we don't get at least one.
I know. See, I don't know if it was Seattle, whoever just played the
Yeah, Ryan
Yankees
Wu almost
recently,
did it against the Yankees. He
took him to
almost
the
did.
eighth inning. Um, so that'll do it. That'll conclude the state of Major League Baseball. Once again, a special shout out and a special thank you to the one, the only Sean Fitzgerald, our Voltage Live colleague, who also has the Fits on Sports podcast with Voltage Live, and the man who tonight, when you are listening to this, will be with us on the air for the other show that we do at Voltage Live, Championship Ring, 6 p.m. Eastern, where we will go more in depth. Me, Fitz, my broadcast colleague, Josh Unger. We're going to talk MLB All-Star Game. We're going to talk MLB Home Run Derby. As always, my social media links are in the description below. We are in collaboration, as Fitz has already said numerous times. Thank you to Fitz, with the one, the only Voltage Live. We will be back on Thursday here at Brandon's World. Until then, have a great day, everyone. Peace.
And I hope you all enjoy the education lesson.
Like that clip from the Brandon's World podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brandon's World podcast right here on YouTube.